Oh, I still forgot to put it on loop.
But
Hey,
we're live, right? So
we
that's
are
all that
live.
matters. We've got 3 people
And we've
already.
got 3 people. I need to press the loop on there and then I won't make that mistake again. Right. Hello, everybody. Hello, Yevgeny. How are
Hello,
you?
hello. Top of
How's it,
the evening.
how's it going? Yes. I had to put a light on. The sun is going down. Sad, isn't
That's
it?
great. You have a nice little tint going on, like you've just come back from Tenerife.
Very salubrious Tenerife. I mean, it is better than the sun shining in my eyes and there being like a shadow to there. The light in here is always a disaster, so I guess the winter is better because I can at least control it better. So, all right, so we have a few people who have shown up already, but it always takes a bit of time for people to see that the live is live and happening. So, should I give the intro spiel? I think you gave it last week, and then we'll just kind
Yeah,
of
cool. Let's
buy
do that.
ourselves a little bit of time. Okay, so hello, the Bijou group that are there already. If you did not already know and don't recognize me because I perhaps look a few years older than the video you last saw of me, and none the wiser, I promise you of that. I'm Gigi, and I am an ex-Amazonian and ex-Amazon bar raiser. And here to my, I'm not sure if it's left or right, is the fabulous Yevgeny. We are the co-founders of Day One Careers. It is just the two of us running this little bijou business, and we are here obviously to help you do as well as you possibly can in your Amazon interview. A little bit of my back history. I worked at Amazon for about 5 years. And as I mentioned, I was a bar raiser. The role of a bar raiser in the interview process, if you don't already know, if you haven't watched the video, is to basically quality assure the process. They are a kind of 5% of the whole organization. They've had some special training to make sure they're more advanced in terms of their skills of interviewing, but also managing the actual interview process itself. Whilst I was a bar raiser, I started to notice, because I did a lot of interviews, some weird things happening. And decided after a while, when I saw a pattern of these weird things happening with my candidates, I would ask them, what made you decide that you were going to do X? Or why did you approach this answer this way? And they often directed me to YouTube and some channels that they had been looking at on YouTube that they were using for their prep. Being the good Amazonian that I was, dived deep. I had a look at those YouTube channels and was a little bit concerned about the information that was being shared on them. They were either run at the time by people who had never worked at Amazon, or they're being run by people who had had a very narrow experience at Amazon. Some of it was not particularly accurate information, and some of it was just downright wrong. So I just decided to launch my own YouTube channel. Everyone inside Amazon knew I was doing this. I even got promoted not personal promotion, but the YouTube channel got promoted internally. I came to the end of my journey with Amazon and decided I would continue doing the channel and see if I could support people applying for Amazon as a little bit of a side hustle. So I set up my own little business, the Amazon Interviewers Academy. Whilst I was doing that, coaching people, digital courses, I was introduced to the gorgeous Yevgeny, who was doing something very similar to me. And we decided that we would join forces and it would be better to work together rather than work against each other. And hence we set up Day One Careers. We offer digital courses and one-to-one coaching for anyone who's applying to Amazon. We focus very much on the behavioral side of things. We don't focus on functional. There are tens of thousands of job families. No way we would be able to cover all of them. But everybody that applies for Amazon has to do a great job and raise the bar on the leadership principles. Amazon uses exactly the same approach for every single job family, every single job level when it comes to interviewing people about the leadership principles. And that's what we offer along with this session every single week, which then I finish and go and have my chicken dinner. But it's not chicken dinner today, Evgeny, in case you're wondering. So that's it. Is there anything you want to add, Yevgeny? Should we? Oh, do you want to talk about housekeeping for the actual show itself?
Yeah. So, okay, well, actually, the one thing that we'll add is, remember that I don't know if you remember that we placed actually one VP at Amazon. Actually, no, I think we helped place two. One I did, the other one that you did. So the one that I did, I asked him, how did the interview process go? And you know what he told me? Exactly as it went for any of the other levels, which is fascinating. So a behavioral interview, the behavioral interview part was exceptionally similar. So, folks, whatever we are training with for us, it works for all levels. In terms of housekeeping, so folks, you have, I'm sure some of you noticed, so we're now on YouTube, so we're not live on any other channels. So,
Oh,
which means that if you are, yes, if you're watching us on YouTube, there's a chat box there. And if you have any questions, and I hope that you do, because that's the reason why you're watching the show, hopefully, and that's the reason we're here. So type your questions into the chat box, and we're going to bring them up on screen. We're going to try and answer them as quickly as we can to the best of our ability. If you have a long question, make sure to split it into multiple parts, and because there's a character limit in that chat box, so split it like a Twitter thread. The first part, second part, third part, and we're going to make sure that we're going to pick up all of the parts and answer them as well. Um, and then remind me, did we talk about not asking us about construction jobs or?
I touched on it lightly, so you might want to just reiterate it.
Yes. So, folks, Amazon has thousands of job families, right? And the functional assessment for all of these job families will be very specific to the job family and sometimes to that team. So, Gigi and I used to be marketers. So, we don't have any expertise in any assessments in terms of functional assessments at all. So, if your question is about functional assessments, like I am interviewing for a pre-construction manager for data centers next week. Can you help me with the functional aspects of my assessment? Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that because we simply do not know. However, because the behavioral assessments are the same, behavioral interviewing is exactly the same for all job families and all levels, this is where we're going to help you. So please keep your question to behavioral interviews. And I think that's it.
That is it. That is it. So can you see all the questions down the right-hand side? Can you see it?
Yes, I can, now that we're back to
Excellent.
StreamYard.
We're back to streamer. Folks, we've been jumping around different types of streaming software, trying to find something that works for us. So I think we've been, I don't know, oh no, we just tried one different one, and then I tried to set up another one and it didn't work. So yes, we're back to StreamYard. Yevgeny is now empowered to do everything. I did not like being the only person driving the car last time. So we're back. So I'll say hi to a few people and then I'll pick a first question. So we've got, where's everyone coming from, by the way? Let us know. I would love to know where people are coming from, because so far I know we're reaching the Philippines. So John Rex Rima is in the Philippines. So that's exciting. I've always wanted to go to Philippines. Oh, I can see my mum's here. Hi, mum. Hi, mum. She's in Hertfordshire, by the way. That's a county in England, if you didn't know, but my mum's here again. Oh, love my mum. Right, okay. So I'm going to pick Hazam's question. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. I don't mean to be ignorant. Right. So you have an upcoming interview for a senior TPM, so technical program manager, L6 role, and you want to know what are the key points I should develop my stories for each principal, what expectation is required for L6 stories. Okay. So I can't tell you what are the key points you should develop your stories for each leadership principle here. We do have a digital course that will tell you pretty much that. But that's 15 hours of content, and I don't think we've got 15 hours to do this stream. So if you are really genuinely interested in knowing the depth of detail that the interviewer is looking for, and what the key points you need to make in each of your stories, you're better off getting our digital course. We'll give you a free sample of it at the end of this session, which covers customer obsession. And you'll be able to see from that in terms of what the different flavors of customer obsession are and what are the key points that they're looking for in customer obsession. So try that. If you like it, then you'll like the rest of the digital course. What expectations are required for L6 stories? That's almost impossible to quantify or qualify, because it's a moving bar, right? The bar raises every single year. So what your interviewers are doing is they're constantly, when they're listening to your stories, benchmarking you against the other people that are in their team operating at the same level in similar or the same role. The difference in the expectation between an L5, an L6, and an L7 is scope and complexity. You would expect an L6 to have worked on things that were of broader scope, so they would have more range in the stories that they share, and their stories would be more complex. Same goes for an L7 over an L6, broader scope, more complexity. Another variable between the three of them will be level of impact. You would expect an L6 to be able to demonstrate a higher level of impact on whatever KPI was their goal in this particular story than someone as an L5, and same for L6 and L7. So we would love to be able to tell you the perfect formula of what exactly is expected of an L6, but it just doesn't exist. And no one could share that formula with you because it's a constantly evolving thing. The expectation of an L6 as of the 21st of October 2024 is going to be different to what the expectation was on the 21st of October 2022. So really what you have to do, what anyone has to do when they're applying for Amazon, is optimize the scope of their story bank, the range of their stories, and optimize the complexity as best you can, in that no one is ever going to be able to tell you exactly what that scope and complexity needs to look like. Oh, and this says, oh, that's a 1 out of 2. So there's a second one there somewhere. Oh, they're just telling us the
Clarification.
role. Yeah, just saying it's network infrastructure data center. Is there anything you'd add to that, Yevgeny?
No, no, it's a moving bar. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to pick the next one then?
Yep.
Seeing as you can.
Yeah, I know, right?
The
Great
power.
powers. Great power.
With great power comes great responsibility. I
Yes.
sounded like Winston Churchill there, didn't I?
Yes, or Superman. I actually don't remember.
It comes from Superman, but for some reason, I decided I would add the Winston Churchill voice. With great power comes
Ye-
great.
yes. Okay. So I have a scheduled loop tomorrow, but when I check the job posting, it says now no longer under consideration. Contacted the recruiter and she confirmed the interview schedule is still on time. Is this positive or negative? What could be the reason? So, Manir, there could be 1.5 million reasons inside Amazon that will result in this in the status of your candidacy of being not no longer under consideration and the loop still going ahead. And none of those particular events or outcomes is anything that you can control. So I'm not even going to go through them because what it will do is it will derail your interview preparation. So just focus on what you can control. If your recruiter told you that the loop is on, then the loop is on. For as long as they've confirmed it, it's on. And if your loop is on, you need to prep. So just focus on your preparation routine. Forget about what it means. If the loop wasn't on, if they decided that to cancel it for some reason, then they would cancel it. But it's on. Interview and just be ready for all sorts of different outcomes. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to try and kind of derail it for you. Would you agree, DG?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's on. It's
It's
on.
on.
It's just on. Okay, cool. I'm going to pick the next one then. So, how does total comp work after year 1, year 2 bonus ends? I know they're heavy on RSUs then, but does the base increase year 3, year 4, provided one gets promoted to L7? If so, till what percentage the base increase capped? Right. So, you're asking me, how do they offset your drop in comp once the bonus disappears? So they're going to offset it by RSUs. Your base is your base. The base stays consistent for the entire 4 years. So if they tell you the base is $250,000, it's $250,000, and that's what's written into your contract, a base of $250,000. So when the sign-on bonus disappears off, it's RSUs that they would use to try and get you to what they call the total compensation target. So your base will not increase as a matter of your initial agreement with Amazon. Now, base pays do increase sometimes. Usually, they increase either as a result of being a top performer, or they're going to increase as a result of inflation and just trying to keep up with inflation. That said, and bearing in mind, I guess my knowledge of bonuses at the end of every year is EU based. My team were all over Europe, so not I would not have had deep insight into the percentage increases as a function of inflation outside of the EU. But the highest ever increase on base I ever saw for one of my employees came at about 8%. And that 8% came about because of a little bit of inflation, but also there was a review of where they sat on the average scale of people at that level of their role. And it was identified that they were way, way below the average. So they gave that person an extra bump. But the highest that was 8. The highest I've ever got, I ever got in terms of an increase to keep up with inflation was 2%. It did not keep up with inflation. So the reality is, the base pay that you sign up to is broadly the base pay that you can expect. If you want to get an increase on that base pay, or a material increase on that base pay, you're going to need to get promoted. But if you are already being paid at the top end of the scale that you signed on at, so let's say you signed on as an L6 and you managed to get yourself at the very top end of the pay scale of L6, it's very possible that you're already being paid more than the bottom of the pay scale of an L7. So it is entirely possible to get a promotion at Amazon and not actually get a pay increase as a base pay increase at all. So I think, yeah, so there is no what percentage is the base increase capped answer, because that just concept does not exist at Amazon. But more broadly speaking, you're very unlikely to see an increase in your base pay other than for major changes like promotions. Anything you'd add, Yevgeny? Have I missed any scenario?
No, no. All I would say is, folks, understand your compensation before you take that offer. Don't be one of those people who talk about the cliff. There is no cliff. The
Not
cliff
anymore.
is in your head. So, right. I think there's one here specifically for you, Gigi, and it's not a question. It's more of a
Ah.
thank you note.
Ah. Oh, Madhu! Yes! Da, 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 da. Congratulations. Oh, thank you so much for letting me know. It's always a real kind of boost when we know that our candidates have managed to land themselves jobs. Oh, it's amazing. Congratulations. I'm absolutely delighted. And I know Yevgeny will too, but wish you an amazing Amazon career. And of course, as you become an interviewer, don't forget to send people our way. Congrats. Delighted.
Congrats, amazing. Madhu, can I ask you for a small favor? I'm sure you've been a member of our community. There's a channel there called Success Stories. Do you mind just writing us a little note there about your experience with us? Because like most people, they stay with us, they get their jobs, and we never see them again, with some exceptions. So it would be really good if you could let the others know how things worked out. But otherwise. Here's the next one. Right, I've actually tried to read the multi-parter here. I'm not sure if the question is somewhere there. Oh, no, it's here. Right. So hi from Canada. I'm applying for a senior account exec role with Amazon Ads. I have worked mostly on long projects, taking up to 6 months. Okay, for an account exec. Okay, fair enough. Is it okay to have multiple answers across different LPs that are about the same projects, but the focus of the story will be different. Actions, results will be independent, but context and parts of the story will overlap. So I've got two things for you. The first one is yes. And in fact, like if you were in my seat right now and you needed to coach someone with a response to a question, can I have overlap? Can I have stories about the same project? That is basically in a nutshell how I would coach people. I would say, yes, if you have long projects, you can chop them up in multiple stories. In fact, I would avoid necessarily burning one whole project on just one story, because projects are long things. You will probably see a project like a series of episodes, and every episode, every snapshot of events happening, milestones happening, interactions with colleagues happening, individual problem solvings, they're going to lend themselves very nicely to multiple stories. So yes, chop them up. Just make sure that the focus is different and you're not trying to essentially sell exactly the same situation under multiple stories. But I think it's a great strategy. People do take heed and adopt it. Anything you would add, Gigi?
Just a build on that actually, which is just a couple of ideas you might use for how you chop them up. So, two key strategies that I saw over my time at Amazon, which I will share with you, and I think there's definitely a video about this on the YouTube channel. One strategy is to chop the project up in the terms of its phases. So most projects have some kind of an initial scoping phase. Another phase tends to be a build phase. Then you have a delivery phase, and then you have some kind of a wrap up phase or phase two, problem solve, bug fix type phase. So chopping it up like that is really nice and clean. So when you open your story, you can explain to the project and then say, I'm going to talk about the initial scoping phase. And then the next time you say, I'm going to talk about the same situation where blah, blah, blah project was happening, but now I'm going to talk to you about the delivery phase. So it's very, very clear that you'll chop this up and it's very different kind of stages of the story. The other thing you can do is divide it by work streams. So if the particular project that you're working on has multiple work streams, legal, technical, regulatory, communications, whatever it might be, you can tell the story across the breadth of the 6 months, maybe, but you're focusing on one particular work stream. So again, you say, okay, the scenario is blah, blah, blah. We had multiple work streams, 5 of them. I'm just going to focus on the legal work stream for this particular story. And it just becomes a very, very clear way of articulating to your interviewer that this does come in different chunks. Okay, let's pick another one then. Oh, and I did ask people to tell us where they're from. So I'm going to call out, we have a visitor from Saudi Arabia, very exciting. Austin, Texas, London. Uh, no
Yeah.
favoritism here. Promise you people, no favoritism here whatsoever. Okay, we've got, oh, visitor from Turkey. Didn't you go to Turkey relatively recently, Yevgeny? Am I
I
imagining that? One of your many,
uh,
many holidays.
no, no, no. I do go to Turkey. I visit Turkey, quite often. So merhaba, welcome.
Mm. Oh, and we've got Stephen in Denver, Colorado, who was brought up in Hertfordshire. You are a Watford person. I seem to recall kind of reading somewhere, someone reading something and telling me that they grew up in Watford. So if that is you, Stephen, excellent. If it's broader Hertfordshire, that's wonderful too. We love Hertfordshire. Well, I do anyway. Okay. Will you take? Okay. So we have a question about negotiation here. All right. I haven't read much of it, but we'll see. Nicholas Oliver. Yes, I will take questions about negotiations. All right. You're currently negotiating your comp package. Okay. All right. If you're going to tell me what the right amount is to negotiate, I can't help you there, but let's see. Second part. No. Okay. I'm waiting for
Second
the
attempt.
question.
It's the second attempt.
I'm waiting for the question. Where's the question?
Oh, there.
Not there, Nicholas. All right. You're going to have to ask me a question, Nicholas. I will try and answer it for you, but you're going to have to ask me a question first because, surprise, surprise, my children don't realize this either, but I am not a mind reader. I know most kids think their parents are. I am not. God, I wish I was. How much easier would life be? All right, so I'm going to pick another one. Ask your question then, Nicholas, and I will try and answer it for you.
I've answered this one.
Oh, we've answered this one, have we? Oh, yes. Okay, right. Next one then. Keep going, keep going. Ah, okay, cool. This is right. Hang on, I have to put my glasses on because this has got too many I's and L's in it for me to actually be able to distinguish between the I's and L's. Right, so this is a one I and one L. I'm sorry. I'd take my glasses off now. Okay, how do you know what level the role is? It's not posted on the JD, just your curious side. Okay. Um, Again, I believe there is a video about this on the YouTube channel, but it's not always very straightforward. Um, it used to be a bit easier because organizationally people were very good at sticking with the standard nomenclature. And the standard nomenclature is that a level 4 or level 5 tends to be a something manager, and then a level 6 tends to be a senior something manager, and then an L7 tends to be a manager something or principal something. But as the organization has expanded, as the organization has moved into more tech areas with more niche roles, that nomenclature has somewhat fallen away. So I quite regularly find in maybe sales roles, in network engineering or software engineering roles, or some of these random acoustic fulfillment centers pre-construction, our favorite one, pre-construction manager for fulfillment centers. The nomenclature doesn't make any sense anymore. So for some of you, you will be able to tell from your job title because it will follow that nomenclature. For others, it won't. So then the next place to go then becomes really the amount of years that they're quoting of experience required. Now, there is no fixed number of years required to meet each particular job level. There is kind of a broad rule of thumb, I think, based on just the number of job descriptions that I've seen over the years, where something like +3 years tends to be an L4, something like +5 years tends to be an L5, something along the lines of +7, like kind of 6, 7 years tends to be an L6. And then once you get to kind of +8, +10, then you're up into the L7s, and then once you get beyond that, it doesn't make a lot of sense at all. So you can use that, but it's a very broad proxy. It's not a organizationally defined requirement. That's literally just a rule of thumb that I've cobbled together over years and hundreds of job description reviews. But a lot of countries don't allow that data to be put into a job description. You won't see that in anything from the UK or Ireland, or I think France, I think, or Germany or Spain. EU law tends to restrict your ability to do that because it considered a age discriminatory practice. So really it's only US job descriptions that I tend to see that in. And then once you're beyond those data points, really there's no way of telling whatsoever. You will just have to either ask your recruiter if they're willing to tell you. Quite often they're not. But then at the end of the day, I kind of think it doesn't really matter. What really you're looking for is a job that has the appropriate scope and challenge in it for you, and whether they're offering the right compensation or not. Really, what level the job is at, personally, I've never considered to be something of importance. If you want to be a people manager, then you'll be a people manager at a 7 or a 6, whatever. Those are the things that you should be concerned about, whether the number lines up to some kind of pre-expectation you have because of where you sit in the hierarchy of your current organization. I tend to think is a little bit of a red herring of a data point to use for guiding you as to whether Amazon is going to give you the type of complexity that you're looking for, because Amazon levels don't match up to the levels in other organizations anyway. So there's how you might do it, but then a little bit of advice on don't worry about it, is my personal opinion. Would you add anything, Evgeny?
No, other than focus on the things that you can control. Level isn't one of them. Right, next one. So this one is from Krushan. I have a loop coming up for an L5 vendor manager role. I used 3 really great scenarios for my phone interview. Can I repeat these examples in my loop? Are the phone interview notes also reviewed? So the phone interview notes are visible to the hiring manager and the bar raiser only, not to anyone else. I believe until it's debrief time. Am I correct, Gigi?
No, no one else ever sees them from
Okay.
a systems point of view. But of course, the bar raiser and the hiring manager can talk about them. So although they won't actually physically see them on the hire, nonetheless, they may hear about it through the hiring manager or the bar raiser should they choose to mention it.
Well, there you go. And so that's that. Then in terms of repeating stories, so repeating stories during your loop is a risky strategy. Why? Because on the one hand, we are hearing from candidates that they repeated their phone screen stories during loop and it was absolutely fine. And in fact, they've mentioned to their loop interviewers that they were going to tell them a phone screen story. And the loop interviewer said, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And it all went fine. On the other hand, we also know of bar raisers who aren't particularly enthused by candidates repeating stories verbatim from phone screens because that's just life. So in terms of a strategy that is safe, It's a strategy where you have fresh content for your loop. And I would also be quite wary of a story bank that hinges on three really great stories. So you do need to aim for a consistent level of greatness to pass the Amazon's bar. That being said, if you are really struggling for content for your loop, and or if you think that those three stories were some of the things that you are the proudest in your career, there's a trick that we often recommend in such situation, and that is to see if the situation behind the story was rich and complex enough for you to be able to see if you can refocus the story about that situation on a different leadership principle, meaning the actions would need to be the same and arguably the problem statement would need to be the same. If you can do it, then I would say, yes, go ahead and repeat the same situation by converting it into a different story, being focused on a different leadership principle. This is not to say that you can't or should not categorically just lift and shift a story from a phone screen to a loop. It's just, it's not the most risk averse strategy. And that's why we don't recommend it. Anything you would add, Gigi?
Just a quick build on that around the type of different leadership principle to focus on. So you'll all have probably noticed that you can theme up some of the leadership principles. So if we talk about earn trust and customer obsession, thematically they're about in the same space. It's about relationships, a different type of relationship, but nonetheless it's about relationships and building relationships and having great commitment, blah 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 blah. You can think about bias for action or R right a lot. They are about making judgments. One of them is kind of very high level judgments. Other is making judgments quickly and making decisions about what you are not going to spend your time thinking about. Um, so what you want to do when you are when you have a scenario that you want to create different stories from, the best thing you can do to make sure that story sounds really, really different than the other story that you told is pick leadership principles that are very, very different. So for example, I like to use this scenario. So let's say we are talking about someone who is an account manager for some kind of digital ads company, and the scenario is that their customer comes to them very, very upset because they purchased some kind of a package, promised a certain amount of impressions, and they've discovered these impressions haven't come through. So one version of this story that the candidate could tell would be about a customer obsession story. How did they, deal with the customer's situation? How did they go and above and beyond? What were they doing to really be obsessed with this customer? Another version of this story could be a dive deep story. So, okay, how exactly did things go wrong? Exactly what analysis did that candidate do to dive into all of the different data sets that are available to them to root cause where the issue was created in terms of the underservice of the impressions. So by doing two very different leadership principles, you can talk about two very different types of skills. If you try and do one story two stories from one situation, one being a earn trust story and the other one being a customer obsession story, they're going to sound very similar. So that's the little build on top of that. Really try and find very different leadership principles when you are constructing multiple stories from a single scenario. Okie dokie. I picked the next one. Oh, Evgeny, it is that time. It is
Ah,
that
yes.
time, our favorite time. All right. So, folks, as you know, I'm sure Evgeny and I put a massive amount into the YouTube channel and also the blog that we have on Day One Careers, blog.day1careers, hours and hours and hours and hours, thousands of hours, I'm sure, at this stage have gone into creating this free content for you. And of course, it is our privilege to do so. And we will do so because we want to help. But at the same time, we would like to ask you for something in return. And it's something that costs you absolutely no money and costs you almost no time whatsoever. And that request is that whenever you are watching any of this content on the YouTube channel, or indeed this stream, that you give it a thumbs up. Are we going to get the... No, we're not. Okay. Oh, you've got it. Dag it. Mine's not working. Okay. it's like a, it's like a whole rock show going on
It's a
over
rock
in your
show.
Geddy's house. Please do give it a thumbs up. Basically, what that does is it tells the YouTube algorithm that they've served the content to the right person because that person likes it, and that also the content is good. So that next time someone searches on those types of key terms, it will prioritize this content over other possibly not quite so good and accurate and appropriate content that you sometimes find on YouTube. You should try to make your way through all of the emojis. Like, you should have a list in front of you and just do all of them. So, folks, I'm going to ask you in the next few seconds to please just give this particular stream a thumbs up. And then anytime you watch any other, it's very distracting now, you Benny. Every time you watch any other content from us, please do the same or put a comment in, hi Gigi, hi Evgeny, or ask a question, whatever it is. But it will boost the algorithm, make sure that we surface and that other people like you are able to get the benefit of the content that you're getting. So I'm just going to do a quick video, and please, whilst I do that, like the stream. I can see how many likes we have here on my other screen here, so I will know if you haven't done it. So which one will I pick? Okay, I'll pick this one, but it's a little bit loud, folks, so you might need to, if you've got earphones on like me, just move them slightly off your ears. Mum, you'll be fine because you're deaf as a post.
Please like the stream now. Please like the stream now. Please like the stream now. Please like the stream. 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 Like the stream.
Sorry, forgot to turn it off. Right, they obviously didn't like that because I've got one extra like. Come on, folks. Oh, we're up to 2 now.
Thank you so much.
Maybe I shouldn't play that one ever again. I don't know. Maybe it's the inclusion of you in it. I don't know.
Thanks. Folks, we have 23, now 22 people attending the stream. Come on. I mean, anything less than 22 likes is what is this? Come on.
Well, it tells us something. I'm not sure what it tells us, but it tells us something.
People
Right.
don't like
Is it
us.
your turn or my turn?
I think it's your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is as well, actually. All right. So, oh yes, here it is. All right. So, you're interviewing for an L6 role as a senior technical program manager. Your recruiter told you to focus on only 11 LPs. What's a good number of stories I should have? So, generally, we say somewhere between 15 and 20 stories, somewhere between there. 20, you're going to be safer than 15. I think it's unlikely that you'll actually be tested on 11 LPs. If you're an L6, then you've probably got 5 interviewers. The most LPs any interviewer tends to be assigned is 2. So I would say you'll probably get tested on 10 LPs rather than 11, but hey, that's not that far off. So we would still say somewhere between 15 and 20 stories to cover you well for 11 LPs. Do you want to pick the next one, Evgeny?
Yes. So do the interviewers tell us that they are either the bar raiser or the hiring manager? So hiring manager, usually yes. Bar raiser, I've never seen a loop, never had a loop, whether my own or anyone else's that I've attended with a bar raiser actually would introduce them to the
Yeah, it does happen,
interviewer.
Evgeny. I've had a couple of my one-to-one candidates tell me that their bar raiser actually introduced themselves as the bar raiser, which I think is such a mean thing to do because it's like immediately, I'm the bar raiser, fear me. But yeah, I think it does happen.
Okay. Does he is that does it usually happen? Because like
I don't think it's a usual.
I don't think it's a usual thing.
I think most people think it'd be a bit of a mean thing to do because you kind of really freak somebody out by just opening with that. So I don't think it's like common, but I don't think it's a never type situation. No. I think I really want a bar raiser to open up their interview with someone saying, I am the bar raiser, fear me.
Or do it the other way. I'm like, okay, well, I'm the bar raiser.
Or I'm not the bar raiser, so I don't really matter. So just say whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, John, okay, let's move on to John. I had my loop interview 5 days ago and expected the results to be out tomorrow. Okay. Ooh, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. And then, okay. And now you had your loop 4 days ago. I'm confused, John. Have we just gone back in time? 5 or 4, doesn't matter. You're curious if the decision of who to hire relies on the hiring manager or if other interviewers will have a say in making the decision. Okay, so The best way I found of describing the relationships and the dynamic in the debrief is that anybody who is not the bar raiser or the hiring manager is a data provider. They provide guidance, they share their experiences, and they give their opinion. And it is expected that the hiring manager and the bar raiser consider those opinions and trust in what that person's saying. Doesn't mean they have to accept it and agree with them, but nonetheless, they have to consider the information being shared by those other participants. But that's all they get to do. If the hiring manager and the bar raiser, for some reason, don't actually agree at all and believe that what these other people are saying is not correct and irrelevant, they are completely empowered to ignore that. Doesn't happen very often, but the actual anyone who isn't an interviewer or a bar raiser has no authority in the room. So then you move on to the hiring manager and the bar raiser. Those are the only two people that have hiring authority in the debrief. The way it tends to go is if the hiring manager and the bar raiser both agree that they want that this person should be hired, they get hired. If the hiring manager wants to hire this person, sorry, if the bar raiser wants to hire the person and the hiring manager does not, the person doesn't get hired. No bar raiser is going to force a hiring manager to hire someone they don't want. That'd be horrible for everyone involved. If the hiring manager wants to hire someone, but the bar raiser strongly disagrees, they have the power of veto. So both hiring manager and bar raiser are decision-making authorities in the room, but the bar raiser is the ultimate decision-making authority in the room. Everybody else is just inputs. Do you want to pick the next one, Yevgeny?
Yeah. Okay. So approximately how long does it take to have a decision post loop? So the target for Amazon, the one that they state openly, is 5 working days or a normal calendar week. I would imagine that in most cases that's how it works, although I've never been privy to any actual statistics. It does happen that it takes longer than a week or a 5 working days. And if it does, it's usually for various different reasons that don't really have anything to do with your interview performance. So if it does, in your case, if it does take a bit longer than 5 working days, then don't treat it as a necessarily negative sign. Just keep on following up politely with your recruiter, and see what happens. Anything you'd add?
Nope, nothing I would add. So I'm just going to pick this one from Christian. Okay, so you've got 5 interviewers, specialist manager, 2 category leaders, head of vendor manager, senior vendor manager. Can I assume the specialist manager is the bar raiser? Yeah, I would. Category manager, VM, senior VM, they're all broadly within the same teams. Specialist manager, I have no idea what a specialist manager is. So I suspect that they are the bar raiser because they just appear to be the odd one out. No guarantees, of course, but that would be my assumption. Um,
Cool.
Moving on.
Right. What would data center operations cluster manager level would be? Manir, no idea. No idea because especially within those types of roles that are kind of away from your vendor manager, product manager, solutions architect verticals, I honestly have no idea. Because this one doesn't have a senior, I would normally go for an L5, but then I've actually coached folks who were in data center ops with similar job titles, and that title ended up being an L6. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say I have no idea. Would you have any more insight, Gigi?
No, not at all. Okay, Christian. So if I purchase the $100 package from Day One Careers, will I also receive the full leadership principal information pack, the question bank? No, Christian. So the full details of what's available with the $100 is on the website. So please read it. But for everyone else's benefit, our digital services fall into basically 2 buckets. We've got our full program, which provides you all of the insight about the leadership principles. It's literally a step-by-step guide of how to build your stories from absolutely nothing all the way through to having a fully reviewed, set of stories that you're really happy with. The main packages include that digital content that will teach you and guide you. It also includes access to what we call our story bank, where you can store all of these stories that you build. And those courses also include access to something that we call the AI Story Review. The AI Story Review is an amazing ML model that we have trained on our own expertise, and you can effectively run your story through that story review tool, and it will provide you feedback as if it were Yevgeny or I providing you feedback on your story. And it produces a PDF that basically says, you told me this, here's all my thoughts on your story. Now, two of our packages include everything as I've just described. The higher end package includes some little extra bits and bobs. The $100 package is just the AI story review. So you're on your own, you have to build your own stories from scratch, but once you've built your story, you can pump it into the AI story review tool. It will review your story for you and send you a PDF with some guidance on how it feels you should make changes to your stories. But if you're curious about what the packages actually contain, it's all there on the website, day1.careers. There's a bunch of FAQs at the bottom of the page, as well as the detailed explanation on the actual sales page itself. Hope that helps. Right, so I'm going to pick another one, Yevgeny. Cassio Mori. Do the bar raiser and the hiring manager get assigned more critical LPs for the role? No. Moving on. Next story. Next question. No, it doesn't work that way. Generally, it's just assigned at random. The principle being that pretty much anyone in Amazon should be capable of asking any leadership principle. And by the way, just because someone's a bar raiser, it doesn't mean that they are the best interviewer on your panel. They're more likely to be at the top end because they're just more experienced and they've had a bit more training. But it is very, very possible to be a very experienced, very, very strong interviewer at Amazon and simply choose not to join the bar raiser program. Bar raising is a massive investment of time, not only in your training, but on an ongoing basis, because you're constantly interviewing and having to manage debrief. So please don't go into your interviews, any of you go into your interviews assuming that someone who isn't a bar raiser is not going to be a top quality interviewer, because they very well could be. There's no reason why they would not be. So because of that, LPs are generally allocated at random. Now, sometimes a hiring manager has a particular preference for someone in their panel to cover one particular leadership principle. Sometimes people are just known for being really good at a particular LP. So when the recruiter issues the allocation, the hiring manager might go back to the recruiter and say, can you assign this LP to Gigi, because I know she's really, really good at dive deep and I want her doing that. But that's kind of a iterative kind of after the initial allocation has been done. Generally, it's just done at random. Okay, do you want to pick the next one?
Yay. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do this one quickly. Okay, so I have a loop coming up in Paris. Any advice, please? What level is the solution architect role? So general advice is all over our YouTube channel and our blog. Just go in and look through all of the videos, and for general advice that will cover most of your needs for a behavioral interview, we've got plenty of stuff in there. In terms of solutions architect role, so if it's a solutions architect role, it's an L5. If it's a senior solutions architect, it's an L6. And then when it's a principal solutions architect, it would be an L7. Should I take another one? I think you probably should.
Shoot, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what are the common mistakes people do while preparing for loop presentation or while presenting? Okay. I am going to give you my one, and then Gigi will give you hers. So I'm just going to go with one top one, and I'll focus on the preparation. So the biggest mistake that folks make while preparing for the loop is actually to starting with stories and then trying to force fit them into leadership principles. In reality, the way that you should be preparing is you first need to understand what's Amazon actually looking for. And you'd be surprised how this common sense idea, which by the way has nothing to do with Amazon whatsoever, literally nothing. Like try to understand what your employer is looking for. It's just the most straightforward thing that you would do. And in Amazon's case, you are incredibly fortunate with them being forthcoming about what competencies, the core competencies they're looking for in people, which they call the 16 leadership principles. And if you want to dive deep into these 16 leadership principles, you also have our packages that help you. But a lot of folks, they don't do either. They start by writing out the stories that they're passionate about for one reason or another. And by the way, these could be really good stories, right? But what they then try to do is shoehorn them into leadership principles and then mold them on the fly and see if a particular story will be a good fit for a question once the question is asked in an interview. And that strategy fails most of the time because Amazon's leadership principles are very peculiar, because Amazon is very peculiar. So start with the leadership principles and then develop stories that showcase the behaviors that Amazon would be looking for under all of those leadership principles. So that would be my common mistake that I see in candidates. What about you, Gigi?
I'm going to give you two. One is preparation and one is in interview. And I'm assuming the word presenting here is a little bit of a red herring and you don't mean actually presenting a PowerPoint slide, because that's not what happens sometimes, but not in the most roles. So in preparation, I think the big mistake that people make is only making a tenuous connection between the leadership principle and the story that they want to tell. So if the question is about, tell me about a time where you had to influence a peer to do something that they didn't want to do, that's not quite the right words, but um, they have a story that has a little aspect of having to influence the peer, but actually the story is in the main about something else completely. And they think just because that tenuous connection exists, that then answers the question. It doesn't. To answer that question, you have to be talking about 70% of your narrative being about the effort that you put into influencing that peer. So that's the first one. So tenuous connections with the leadership principles. And then the second one, which is about mistakes people make whilst they're interviewing, is not answering the question. That is the number one complaint that you get from interviewers at Amazon when it comes to candidates, which is a little bit similar to Yevgeny's point. Candidates come into the interview with a set of stories that they want to tell, and they often have a top 3 or 4 stories that they want to tell, and they're going to tell them whether you like it or not. Whether you want to hear it or not, they're going to tell you that. And what frequently happens is candidates just tell a story. They don't answer the question. They've just decided they want to tell you that story. And generally it's the first and second interviewers that complain the most of that because these candidates are just desperate to get these stories out. Now, had they just waited, if they've done their prep properly, the reality is they would probably have got to tell that story anyway by the time they got to interviewer number 4 or interviewer number 5. But they're so determined to tell the story they want to tell, they just throw it at interviewers. And there is no faster way to a not inclined than ignoring the question and just sharing a story you want to share. So that's it. That would be my 2. All right. Right. Okay. So, hi Kumar. Okay, so you're having a loop interview for a QAE2. Okay, you're confident in your tech skills. You're not gaining confidence on the LPs. You've created around 17 stories. Okay, but most of my LPs are making me feel that would this be enough for raising the bar? Amazon requires any tips on how you can measure the quality of our created LP stories. Well, I guess there are 2 ways of looking at this. There's does this story actually describe the behaviors that Amazon is looking for in the leadership principles, right? That's one assessment of whether you're going to end up being bar raising or not. The other assessment is, has the story that I have just articulated, does it sound like something that anybody currently operating at that level or a similar at that level in that role or a similar role in Amazon would have done? Okay, so the first one, there is actually a way to know whether you have or have not demonstrated the behaviors that they're looking for. And quite honestly, that's to get our course, because that's the insight that we offer you. If you don't want to get our course and you want to go alone, fine. You need to break down the description of the leadership principle word by word by word, and really try and read between the lines in terms of what you think they are looking for in that description. There is not a single wasted word in the descriptions that they write for leadership principles. They will have invested hours and hours and hours and hours on picking exactly the right word to use. So nothing is wasted in there. So you would need to spend the time really picking through every single word in that description to really get a sense of what are they looking for here. The other piece, which is about um, would it be bar raising, which is this point about referencing people who are already in the organization. There's no way of you knowing that. There's no way of Yevgeny knowing it, of me knowing it, of anybody else outside Amazon knowing it. And actually, there's no way of anyone inside Amazon, any individual being able to tell you whether your story is or is not actually bar raising, because the decision as to whether something is bar raising or not is a collective discussion between the people in the room, their shared experiences. And it's that shared experience that they would then make the assessment on as a group as to whether you are raising the bar or not. Because the bar is meant to be the same across the whole of Amazon, but obviously it's not in the kind of the minutiae of the detail. So it takes that discussion in amongst the actual panel to come to a view as to whether you are raising the bar or not. So all you can do is try and add as much relevant complexity in your story, and I mean relevant to the leadership principle, as you can, to try and make it sound like this was a really challenging thing to do, and not any Tom, Dick, or Harry doing this type of role or at this type of level would have been able to do that. That's all you can do. I quite often, to give my clients a bit of a benchmark as to what this might look like, ask yourself, is this something that I can see my manager doing? Would this be considered to be something that I would look at my manager and go, yeah, cool, that's of my manager's caliber? Because actually, if this thing that you're describing, if you were to look at all of your peer group around you and say to yourself, actually, I reckon anyone in my team would have done what I did in that situation, you are not bar raising. Right? Raising the bar is being about above the average, and being able to spot check your current line manager, and or at the time the line manager, and ask yourself, do I think this is the caliber of work I would see from them, is probably a much better benchmark for you. All right. Do you want to add anything, Evgeny? Want to pick another one? How many minutes have we
No,
got
I'll pick
left?
another
Oh, we've
one.
got 3 minutes. Geez, the time flies fast.
Okay, maybe let's see. Okay, so finally, Nicholas has the
Oh,
question.
Nicholas'
So let's answer
question.
the question.
Woo! Let's get Nicholas in there.
Yes, so I received an offer last week and I submitted a counter offer this morning. The recruiter responded already and indicated that my counter offer was above what he can offer for this role, even though it was within the advertised range for the role. Should I expect to meet me in the middle, which would be in the center of the range? Also, if the base salary is raised, would the bonus and RSUs be increased as well? Right. So in terms of them meeting you in the middle, they may or they may not. It really depends. It depends on many factors. It depends on how far you are from what they believe that they can offer you. It depends on whether the hiring manager is ready to quote unquote go to war with you. In case the compensation and benefits team needs to be involved. So it really depends on many different factors that, quite frankly, you don't really have any visibility to. That being said, here's what you can do, and here's what you should do. So the minute they told you that, oh, what you're asking for is above the range, you have entered into a conventional negotiation with them. So don't treat this as a no. It's an invitation to negotiate. So one of the things that you have noticed, and rightly so, is that your ask was within the range that was advertised. Now that your recruiter is telling you, oh, well, this is actually above the range that was advertised, you can respond to them by saying, oh, that is interesting. I was meant, based on what was advertised in the actual job description, I was meant to believed that this was actually handsomely within the range, and begin a negotiation exchange with them. They may meet you in the middle, they may not meet you in the middle, but you will never know where that will be. But you should treat it as a negotiation, and this is a good opportunity to start laying down all the reasons why you should be paid whatever you're asking for. Data inconsistency, like you've seen, is one of them. Other offers that you have seen being made for the same role at the same level is something else. So there's plenty of other things, but this is a negotiating process. Do not take no for an answer until they tell you that this is our best and final offer. Anything you'd add?
Nope, that's it. Right, folks, we are at time, so do not run away because you'll regret it if you do. And I forgot to turn that ticker tape on at the beginning. Silly me. Okay, so folks, I mentioned at some point during this last hour that we have a bunch of free stuff to give you. So this is the URL for where you can get that free stuff. And I will quickly rattle off what that free stuff is. So first, as I mentioned, we have a sample of our course there, which is focused on customer obsession. It explains to you the different flavors, we like to call it facets of customer obsession that Amazon considers. And it will also detail for you what the interviewer is looking for in your answer about customer obsession. And there's also a little mock interview in that particular course, me interviewing me, just showing you how the whole thing comes together. So seeing as almost everyone is going to be tested on customer obsession if they make it through to Loop, you may as well take that. No reason not to. It's totally free. The next thing that we're going to provide you for free at the end of that link is a list of what we call plausible Amazon interview questions. Now, we cannot give you the exact Amazon interview questions, but we have created our own version that are going to be extremely useful when it comes to practice. Now, you don't want to create stories off the back of every single one of those questions. There's like, I think, 120 of them. But what they will do is give you a very good flavor of the types of questions that you can expect from Amazon, and you can practice using those. The other thing that you get if you take out either of those two things is access to our Heartbeat community. So we have a community of about 5,500 Amazonian hopefuls. Some have they interviewed for Amazon a while ago and perhaps aren't interviewing at the moment, but other people who are currently active. And you can join that community and buddy up with people and do mock interviews for each other. The other thing that you'll find in that community is another fantastic ML AI tool that basically we have trained on all of the content from the YouTube channel. So if there's any question that is covered by the YouTube channel, you can go onto the Heartbeat community, ask our bot, who we have called Andy. Obviously, you can't guess why we've called him Andy. And you can ask him any question you have. And if the answer to that exists on the YouTube channel, he will give you that answer. And it might save you a whole bunch of time wading through the YouTube channels. Not that I want you to necessarily not look at the YouTube channel, because obviously I put so many hours into creating that content, but nevertheless, it's a bit of a shortcut for you. So that is available on the end of that free URL. Make use of it. It's totally free. Why wouldn't you? And I think that's it. Have I missed anything that's at the end of the freebie line?
No,
No?
it's
Okay.
all there.
It's all there, folks. Make use of it. Seriously, it's free stuff. Why wouldn't you? Okay, so that's it for this week. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. If you managed to land yourself an Amazon role, congratulations. We're super, super proud. And if you have an interview coming up, we have our fingers very, very tightly crossed for you. And if we did not get to your question by the end of this session, I apologize deeply, but you can ask that question on the actual YouTube channel itself. So find any random video and you can just copy and paste your question in there. And Yevgeny and I will get back to you ASAP. And say something nice. Someone left a very mean comment on the YouTube channel earlier this morning. When I woke up 7 o'clock this morning, there was something very mean and hurtful on there.
Was it about me?
No, it was about me. And it was very unkind. So, folks, don't say unkind things. If you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything. I think there was a teacher at school that used to say that to me. I was going to try and accredit it to my mum, but she's on here and she would know that I
My
was
wife
talking
says it to
absolute
me
crap.
every day.
There you go.
I don't know why.
Okay, interesting insight into your marriage then. Right. Thanks, folks. Be safe. Good luck. Work
rock
hard,
on.
and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.